Evening, everyone. CC. To full council meetings, giving members and any members of the public who may be attending remotely. Please be advised that the meeting will be live streamed and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the council's website. Following staff are in attendance: Chief Executive, Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhoods, Director of Resources, Monitoring Officer and Democratic Services. Agenda item 1, emergency evacuation. There is no scheduled test of the fire alarm, and if the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly using the doors signed as fire escapes and assemble in the car park at the front of the building and await instructions. If there is anyone in attendance that might require assistance in evacuating the building, please quickly make yourselves known. Item 2, agenda item 2 is apologies for absence. I invite the Chief Executive to give you apologies, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've received apologies from councillors Booth, Carnell, Chapman, who is online, Hunt, Gibson, Nundy, Shield, and Councillor Paul Stevens.
Agenda item 3. Do members approve the minutes of the council meeting held on the 11th of October 2023, minute numbers 343 to 351 as a correct record all agreed? Thank you. Item 4, do members have any interest to declare? Take that as a no. Okay. Agenda item 6. Item 5, sorry, I've let Tom, it's himself. Okay. So, quite a busy time, a few things to say. But my first one to say, I think it's been quite an exciting time for Sittingbourne this last week, our celebrations last weekend. But also, I'd love to extend congratulations to our 2 community local radio stations. Their awards this week. It's been really fantastic. Sittingbourne FM, here at Smile House, SFM, have been given the King's Award for Voluntary Services as of yesterday. So that's an amazing achievement, really fantastic. And Shepley FM on the island have won the best local community radio station 2023 out of about 430 stations, I think. So well done, our community radio station. My engagements themselves have been varied, from celebrating with another local radio station, Rotary Radio, on their 5th anniversary, to the dedication of our new Swale crematorium in Faversham. So they've been obviously quite diverse. In between, I attended the Faversham Carnival Queen Reception and Evening Carnival, and I spent a lovely lunchtime at the Freedom Centre in Sheerness, meeting the users of this wonderful centre and seeing their amazing artwork, which we're hoping to get in an exhibition in the new year, because it is absolutely amazing with the disabilities they've got. Paul and I attended the 2 Royal Society of St George events celebrating Trafalgar Day and their 40th anniversary. But we're now currently in the remembrance period, which saw us attending Royal British Legion Popular Field launches at County Hall and the Forum here in Sittingbourne. I also launched the Bringing History Alive exhibition last week at 34 The High Street, which is running over the Remembrance Fortnight, finishing on Saturday, which was facilitated by a Levelling Up grant. And it sees a collaboration of all our precious heritage gems coming together to create a truly fabulous display of history and well worth a visit. So we've got the Aviation Museum, we've got the Light Railway, Wartime House, the heritage people in the forum. We've got so many groups that are exhibiting in this, and we've got included Canterbury College as well. We've got an actual dementia Spitfire, which is a 40-size Spitfire hanging from the ceiling, which is covered in memory pictures, and it's amazing. So if you are in Sittingbourne High Street, please visit this wonderful exhibition. A lot of blood, sweat and tears has gone into it, but that will be then given to the Aviation Museum. So that student's going to have their Spitfire exhibit in the Aviation Museum. So that's really good news. So that's another good positive bit. Also, the Wartime House itself has actually got, through the funding, is able to open free of charge at the weekend on Saturday. So that would be lovely if some people can take some grandchildren or children to it, because it's an amazing experience. And we're trying to keep all these heritage places alive. And we're so rich in heritage, so it's really important. With Remembrance in Mind, last weekend was certainly a special one. It started on Friday for me at Tunstall Primary School, where they had a moving and delightful remembrance service, and a very proud grandfather was with me, Chris. And both his grandchildren were in there with a role, and they had a speaking role, so he was very proud, so they took part. Sittingbourne's actual service was particularly special this year, which is going hand in hand with what I've just been talking about. It was Remembrance, which is 100 years old. So centenary, that's a bit obvious, sorry. And with it, it's probably the only living working avenue in the Commonwealth with the research that the research group have done. And we think it might even be the only one in the world. So Sittingbourne again, really good news for Sittingbourne. We've got something really special there. Remembrance Avenue itself, if you haven't seen it, please try and see it, because the trees are all dressed with large poppies and ribbons. Really stunning. And on the actual procession day, each tree had a tree sentinel. Sometimes it's a member of family whose relative was actually on that, got the remembrance plaque, and a lot of girl guides and other groups stood at each tree. So it was very, very moving. And the procession itself had lots of vintage art, well not lots, it had vintage army vehicles. So we were in the middle of the service and heard this tank rumble down Sittingbourne High Street, which was quite an interesting noise to hear. But there was also a vintage ambulance from the First World War, and an army jeep, which happened to be for the mayor. So she had a tour on the parade in a nice jeep all the way up. But it did give me the opportunity to thank all the sentinels as we went up the actual parade. It was really lovely. The most moving moment was the release of 25 white doves, which signified 25 parishes of Swale. And that was a really moving moment. And I also want to extend my thanks to all the councillors who represented me at services across the borough. Thank you very much. That's been good. The only thing I would say negative is sadly our local press has not reported any of this. Not a single thing in the local paper today, which is so sad when there's such a historical moment happening as well. So that's the only negative thing I'm going to say. Lastly, there was a very special film screening at the Avenue Theatre that I attended on behalf of the Mental Health Group. The film was made by Ryan, who sadly passed away this year, and was shown by a very close friend that evening to his family, friends and members of the Mental Health Group. It was a very moving celebration of the talent that so sadly missed. So that was a really special event again that we had. So that's all I've got to say this evening. Thank you. Okay, so we do agenda item 6, questions submitted by the public, and we have no questions this evening. So agenda item 7, questions submitted by members, and there are 5 questions. I will ask each member in turn to ask their question, and then the rest of the councillor to respond. So I've got Councillor Mark Tucker doing the first question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my councillor training in this chamber on Monday the 15th of May, the Section 151 officer explained that there was approximately £15.5 million left in reserves. With the current business model, the officer said that this council would be bankrupt by March 2025. It has been exactly 6 months since then, and I am still unsure as to what the administration's plan is to correct this very worrying position. Can the deputy leader please explain what the plan is to prevent this council going bust?
Thank you, councillor Tucker. Councillor Baldock, can you respond, please?
Certainly. Thank you for your question. For clarity, the section 151 officer was actually on leave on Monday, the 15th of May. Training was delivered by the deputy section 151 officer. The financial position that was presented to new members confirmed that savings would need to be made to avoid the council being in the position of being able to have a balanced budget. This is a situation faced by many councils in light of the severe cutting of government grants and, of course, high levels of inflation, whilst we have to observe a council tax cap way below that inflation. It has not been helped, of course, by previous Conservative administrations as well, failing to increase council tax year on year, causing an annual £1 million shortfall in our base budget and costing us some £11 million extra in reserves. The annual budget cycle was presented to members at the induction session, which confirmed that the administration publishes their draft budget for consultation in November. Since July 2023, the administration's finance subgroup has been working with senior officers to deliver the medium-term financial plan that will address the budget gap over the period of the plan. Draft budget will naturally contain some areas of uncertainty, as the local government draft financial settlement is not due for publication until late December, and has been the case for several years now. Local government continues to see only a one-year settlement. This makes the financial planning process ever more difficult.
Thank you, councillor Baldock. Councillor Tucker, would you like to supplementary?
That's fine, ma'am. I'd like to thank the deputy leader for his response. Yes, you are correct. It was the deputy. That's my deputy saying. I look forward to the budget coming out in due course. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tucker. Question 2 is coming from councillor Ricky Palmer to councillor Baldock. Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the member for Constitutional Affairs to confirm if it is acceptable for planning consultants to use their private business email accounts, i.e. a non-council email, when communicating with developers on behalf of Swale Borough Council? And can you confirm that all planning consultants are provided with a Swale Borough Council email address for conducting Swale Council business? Thank you.
Councillor Palmer. Councillor Baldock, can you respond?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the councillor for his pertinent and very relevant question. You raised a very concerning issue. We have a number of consultants who work for the council. Currently, some of them have a Swale email address and some of them do not. Our computer usage policy apparently forbids forward of emails to a personal email address, but not to a business email address, and is silent on consultants using their business accounts. This raises some very serious issues about confidentiality and about transparency, and I have asked the Chief Executive to look into this issue to ensure that a consistent approach is taken across all of our consultants.
Thank you, councillor Baldock. Councillor Palmer, have you got supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the answer there, and I think it's well worth looking at. But also, I think members of staff should be, and all members actually of the council should realise that should a freedom of information request come in, then if the information is held on a private email account or a work email account under the Information Commissioner's guidance and case law, that information should be provided, and the council should seek that information if they know that. Right, thank you.
Councillor Palmer, was that a question?
Yes, sorry, you're quite right. So the question is, will the review make sure that it highlights the issues of the Freedom of Information Act? Thank you.
Councillor Baldock.
Yes, now that this information has been brought to our attention, this quite worrying deficit, it's going to be addressed. I think robustly is the word that government might use, so robustly.
Thank you, councillor Baldock. Third questions from councillor Tony Winklis to councillor Richard Palmer. Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome the announcement that Swale secured £323,000 for the Safe Streets Fund. in the end, extra funding after huge cuts for police and youth services budgets is good news. Antisocial behaviour is a big issue for my residents, so can I urge that Milton Regis is also a beneficiary on initiatives funded by the scheme.
Thank you, councillor Winchester. Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, councillor Winters, for the question. I'm really pleased that Swale has been successful in securing funding for the Swale Safer Streets Fund. The bid was secured through the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, who identified that Sittingbourne and Sheerness town centres met the eligibility criteria for the funding. The funding, therefore, will not be able to be utilised in other areas such as Milton. I appreciate that all areas will experience issues with crime and antisocial behaviour, and therefore it is important that these are reported to ensure that they can be responded to and, when possible, will form evidence for any future funding applications. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer. Councillor Winchester, do you want to come back?
I have a supplementary, yes, please. As funding is available, goes to replacing the CCTV camera by the car park in Milton High Street. Now, the CCTV centre is back in-house, being monitored in Swale after reports being sent into Kent Police on a regular basis of antisocial behaviour in the area.
I think it's, what's the actual question then?
Question is, will there be CCTV replaced in Milton Regis?
Councillor Winchester. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you for the supplementary question. I will ask officers to review the information on crime statistics and to see if CCTV is a possibility, but I can't make any guarantees. It's down to if the crime statistics show and the police give it a call. But thank you for highlighting it and bringing it to the attention. Thank you.
The fourth question is from Councillor Kieran Golding to Councillor Richard. Oh, is that? I do.
Thank you. Some of my residents are disappointed to hear that the council's graffiti service is no longer available to provide a comprehensive service due to funding restrictions. Real terms government settlement funding to Swale Borough Council has been cut in half since 2015. With inflation driving up costs, including for council services, does the leader agree with me that the government's autumn statement needs to include additional funds for councils so that we can continue to provide these services, essential services for our residents? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Golding. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Councillor Golding, for your question. I'll answer on behalf of the leader. The council's service for removing graffiti has been reviewed this year following a reduction in the level of funding available to us, forcing us to reduce internal staffing levels. We are, however, continuing to remove offensive graffiti from public property via our cleansing contractors and working with property owners to encourage graffiti removal from private property. The government have recently pushed for a crackdown on antisocial behaviour, including graffiti, and fines for those caught have risen. However, it is unclear as yet, due to an impending consultation, on how any increased income can be used. Furthermore, with reduced staffing, it remains difficult to catch people in the act. A combination of restrictions to the amount we can increase our income by each year and ongoing high rates of inflation, which even at half the rate they were at the start of the year is still 60% above the limit we can raise council tax by, mean that we're having to review and reduce services across the board. So yes, I would join my colleague in agreeing that a full review of government finances is required, and in the short term an improved settlement in next week's autumn statement would be very welcome, not least because it may help ensure the solvency of our friends at Kent County Council for another year. Thank you.
Councillor Lee. Councillor Golding, do you want to come back with a supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a supplementary question. Thank you, Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Councillor Golding. Councillor Angie Bowles has got a question for Councillor Monique Bono. Councillor Bowles.
Of central government's economic failure, there are over 80 empty retail units in Sittingbourne town centre. The Conservative government has announced, re-announced and repackaged a number of funds over the years to support high streets. Yet they're typically centralised, over-prescriptive and poorly administered schemes don't deliver what's desperately needed. What more does the chair of the Regeneration and Property Committee think the council can do to support successful business opportunities, from pop-up shops and new startups to brands and retail staples on our high streets?
Okay, thank you, councillor Vowles. Councillor Bonnet?
Thank you. Thank you, councillor Vowles, for your question. Firstly, we have to recognise that our town centres in Swell are predominantly from private ownership, and their ownership is very fragmented, with few large landowners in our high streets. It therefore requires these many private parties to acknowledge their part in improving the town centres. That noted, many of the solutions for improving high streets lays in the hands of central government. The arcane approach to taxation, including business rates, acts as a huge barrier to entry and brake on our enterprise in high streets. Tax reform would require central government to be proactive and to review the effectiveness of business rates. To my mind, business rates disadvantages businesses with bricks and mortar shops, especially in our town centres. Where funding for town centres and high streets has been available, Swell Borough Council has accessed a large number of government funding streams in recent years, with a view to supporting high streets. This includes the successful £20 million bid for the Levelling Up Fund for our flagship Sheerness Revival project, which will bring investment and footfall to this important town centre, and which we are hope to see as a catalyst for future investment. As part of our match funding for the bid, we committed and secured a combined budget of £1.5 million for the complete refurbishment of Masters House on Trinity Road to bring this disused asset back into use as a business hub with a major social impact. This will be a huge boost for the town centre. We also work closely with central government to unlock £1.5 million of prosperity funding across the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund. This includes £170,000 for capital schemes for each of our main town centres, £50,000 for a town centre radio scheme for these town centres and Laysdown, and over £200,000 for town centre grant schemes for our main town centres plus Milton Regis and Queenborough, all designed to promote footfall, increase options for residents and opportunities for business. Further to this, we will invest over £200,000 across a range of support options for all local businesses over the next 3 years until 2025, and are investing £45,000 in marketing collateral to support our visitor economy over the same period. I agree with you that these schemes are in many ways poorly administered by central government, and that the processes involved in accessing and delivering the funding that is rightfully ours is not fit for purpose and place a huge and unnecessary burden on staff and members. We have and are lobbying government to make funding release timescales and mechanisms more realistic, so that the full impact of this investment will not be threatened or lost. I wrote to the Minister last month and will continue to press for structural changes to central government funding schemes which reduce bureaucracy and enable funding to reach our communities and businesses possible with minimal constraints.
Thank you, councillor Bonnet. Councillor Vowles, do you have a supplementary?
No, I don't have a supplementary. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Vowles. We're going to move on now to agenda item 8, deputy leader's statement. I will ask the deputy leader to read his statement, and then I will ask the leaders of the opposition groups to respond in the usual way. Followed that, and that I will invite other members to respond to the leader's statement. Members invited to speak will have 3 minutes. This item has an overall time limit of 30 minutes. To ensure broad fairness, I will try to invite responses from members of the administration and opposition groups in roughly equal numbers. This may mean that I deviate from the order in which members have indicated to speak. Can I please remind members that responses must be to the issues raised in the statement? So I now invite Councillor Baldock to give a verbal statement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, as you may be aware, our leader, Councillor Gibson, had an accident which has led to a number of broken toes and limbs. They have me instead. For which reason, I'm sure that you would all like to extend your best wishes to Tim and to hope for a speedy recovery. By way of an update, Tim wrote to the Secretary. By way of an update, Councillor Gibson wrote to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Stephen Barclay, following the motion at our last council meeting about this council's concerns regarding the inadequate provision of GPs in our borough. He also took the liberty of copying the letter to both our local MPs, Gordon Henderson and Helen Watley, and he will let you all know when he receives a reply. As this council continues to battle with homelessness and temporary accommodation impacts, Tim, together with another 157 council representatives, participated in a summit on the issue organised by the District Council's network. The scale of the problem was highlighted by a recent survey in which 96% of our member councils reported an increase in temporary accommodation, with 4/5 of them describing it as significant. In a letter to the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, signed by a cross-party group of leaders, councils are requesting a rise in local housing allowance rates, provision of £100 million additional funding for discretionary housing payment, provision of £150 million top-up to the homelessness prevention grant, a review of the cap for housing benefit subsidy rates for local authority homelessness placements, and developing policy to stimulate retention and supply in the privately rented sector. It was bitterly disappointing to hear recently that Kent County Council have closed Blackburn Lodge on Sheppey. This is a cruel and disheartening move by KCC that would devastate both our residents and staff alike. On better news, our council, through the Community Safety Partnership, worked with Kent Police and the Crime Commissioner to secure £323,000, as you've heard, from the government's Safer Streets Fund. Members will recall, in fact, a number of you will have taken part in last year's LGA peer review, the outcomes of which are subject to an action plan which was agreed by the Policy and Resources Committee last month. The action plan included finalising a new corporate plan with the input of staff and members that will outline their strategic priorities and how they can be achieved in the agreed budget. On another note, I'm delighted to say that the threat to the closure of Faversham HWRC, or TIP, has been removed and it will now remain open. Members may recall that both Councillor Gibson and Councillor Lehman wrote strongly worded letters to Kent County Council in opposition to the closure in support of the excellent work and lobbying that has been carried out by members of this council, in particular those representing Faversham wards and of course members of the Faversham Town Council. The outcome for residents in Faversham and the wider Swale Borough represents a victory for common sense. On that theme, Milton Creek Country Park in Sittingbourne, which of course was once a landfill site but now offers 128 acres of meadows, scrubs and aquatic habitats, has been awarded gold in the South and South East in Bloom Awards for the 9th year in a row. The awards not only recognise an area's beautiful flower beds and displays, but also the efforts being made to protect and enhance the natural environment. The park, of course, being home to species which not only have national but international importance. Faversham in Bloom won a gold, whilst Queenborough and Mushington in Bloom won a silver gilt, and Tenham in Bloom a silver. Quite a rush through all this. People can now have their say on 2 of Swale's conservation areas, thanks to the consultation that we have embarked upon. We have reviewed the existing conservation areas of Milton Regis, Cellar Hill and Green Street as part of our ongoing commitment to deliver the adopted heritage strategy and action plan. On another note, I would like to commend our enforcement teams who have been successful in bringing prosecution for fly tipping and environmental health issues. A woman found to be involved in fly tipping appeared in court and was convicted in order to pay nearly £5,000 thanks to the work of our officers. Equally, a local food hospitality premises has been subjected to closure following investigation from our environmental health team, who, following an emergency prohibition notice, progressed the issue through the courts with costs being awarded against the owner. All this demonstrates a dynamic and effective council working hard on all fronts and achieving results despite the excruciating financial challenges that we face, along with so many other councils across the country. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Bulldog. So I'd like now to invite Councillor Bowen to give his response to the statement, please.
Madam Mayor, that's a blooming good statement from the Deputy Leader. I think if you give me insights of the statement, and on behalf of the Conservative group, we also wish the leader, Councillor Gibson, all the best and hope he is back in the chamber very soon. But he does need to take the time to ensure he is fit and able to return rather than rush it and, no pun intended, take 2 steps backward when attempting 1 step forward. Our best wishes to him and his family, as well, as I'm sure they are probably just as frustrated as he is. The motion from the last council meeting really generated a lot of interest, not only locally, but also nationally and in the medical publications for GPs. It definitely put us on the radar, and I really look forward to the response. I welcome the attendance at the DCN Summit on homelessness and hope something worthwhile comes from it. I also hope that when the corporate strategy is put to public consultation in the coming weeks, it's on the next PNR agenda for those who want to join that homelessness and temporary housing is still as much a high priority for this administration as it was in theory for the last. I hope the demands of the letter are met positively. However, it does come back to how would those sums be paid for at a time where everyone, including government, and just like Swale, are struggling with funding, and the taxpayer is not a limitless stream of cash. I'm delighted that we've been allocated £323,000 towards Safer Streets. I'm sure this will make a difference to the town centres. But let's not lose sight that antisocial behaviour, crime and violence is not restricted to town centres. Our villages and rural communities also face the same challenges, which at times have a direct link to the perpetrators causing this in our town centres and live in our town centres. We need to also remember those and help where we can to tackle issues wherever they arise. And on that, I would like to praise the PC for Tenham and Linstead and other areas on her work so far with trying to deal with issues. She's a very good, as I'm sure all officers are. I agree that the change of heart regarding Faversham Recycling Centre is a good one. I hope this is a long-term decision. I also want to praise the work of our enforcement team involved in the prosecution of the lady fined for fly tipping, and more recently the environmental health team investigating and dealing with local restaurant that was substandard. Well done to all. Whilst others may say, but what about this? These 2 cases do show that where we can, Swale will take action to ensure residents' health are the priority. And on the same notion, I was pleased with the swift action taken regarding Faversham swimming pools and hope it will, if not already, reopen very shortly after a structural issue was found. And whilst thanking officers, I'm going to finish off with one more, and that's to the Chief Executive and yourself, Councillor Baldock, for your help last Thursday with the visit of First Tenham Scouts. They came down as part of their Democracy Week in Parliament. They sat in the Planning Committee meeting, and it was a thoroughly good evening. But most notable at the end, we asked them a question about how much do they think councillors earn. And several of them thought we earn over £100,000 a year. Thank you. And even what we get.
Sections of things. Okay. So Perkin, to give her response to the statement.
Thanks, Oliver. On hope because I have not seen the statement above. So, yeah, I would just like to echo the deputy leader's well wishes to Councillor Gibson and his recovery, and also to welcome back the Chief Executive from her leave. I'm very glad to see the swift work that's been made on the GP motion and that has gone to the Secretary of State straight away. On homelessness, I'm also glad to see Suella Braidman no longer in her position after referring to homelessness as a lifestyle choice. Disagree with, glad she's gone. I also like to echo the Deputy Leader's comments on Blackburn Lodge and the potential loss of the service there to residents.
I'd like to further congratulate the officers on the Safe Streets bid. It's, as councillor Bowen also raised, it's a shame that there is no money available for Faversham's town centre. But I understand the reasons why that has not happened. The threat to close the tip, and that being reneged on, is also very welcome. But myself and the Lib Dem group would like to encourage members to keep an eye on where that money is going to come from. So as we go into a very challenging financial situation for Kent County Council, we know there are swathing cuts about to happen to youth services and also to children's centres, which might not make the news as much as the tip being closed, but are incredibly important to our residents. And I'm very sorry that I can't compete with Lloyd on his jokes.
That's right.
Okay, councillor Gibson.
Thank you. Right. I'd like now to invite any members to give a response if they want to, those indicate. Councillor MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to, again, endorse the comments with regard to Blackburn Lodge, which I think is an absolute disgrace, quite frankly. Usual thing for close it. It's all sorts of excuses. I was told that it was a water leak to start with, so I said that can be sorted in 24 hours, or even call the MOD at Gillingham to come in and they would sort it. Then I was told, oh no, it's something to do with iron in the water. That's a responsibility initially of Southern Water. But that can be cured very quickly. Frankly, I'm absolutely disgusted. It's the usual thing for Paul Sheppey, close it. Now that premises were built on land that was bought and paid for by the people of Sheppey. So my own suggestion is that if the county can't run it, then it should be handed over to a local charity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will Liv need to send his letter for the latest in a long string of health secretaries regarding the last month's GP's motion? Regarding Blackburn Lodge, will the deputy leader agree this is disgraceful and disgusting for the residents of 92 being moved from their homes halfway across Kent? These homes should be reopened as soon as practically possible. The deafening silence from KCC and public about this is concerning.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was glad to hear the words homelessness and temporary accommodation in this leader's statement. It's no surprise that 96% of councils report an increase. I think I'm right in saying there's only been 23,000 new social rent homes built since 2015. That's despicable. That's where the work is needed. It's not on private rent. It's on those that are on our housing lists, those that can't afford to rent privately at the moment, where the support is really desperately needed. That's what's driving people out onto the streets. It's the fact they cannot afford to live in the homes that. And frankly, as a civilized nation, we should be ashamed. There is no way that people should be living in subways by Faversham railway station, in doorways in Sittingbourne, in parks and in tents. And anybody who dares to suggest that it's a lifestyle choice, quite frankly, has no idea what people who are at the bottom of the barrel and scraping by are really suffering with. We need the works, we need the investments, we need government to properly invest in social housing. All well and good saying right to buy back in the day to claw back some of that investment that was put in between 1917 and 1984. But frankly, we need to be looking at that again. What was it Lloyd George said? We need homes fit for heroes. I think we need that again now.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Winters.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I totally agree with the leader's statement. The amount of investment that has been put into various projects in this borough in the last few years is coming strength to strength. And particularly again, I will speak on behalf of Milton Regis. The country park investment that has been put into that in recent years has come from leaps and bounds, as some of us remember when it was a tip and Traveller's Sight, and may it continue. And also, I'd like to take the opportunity volunteers at Milton Country Park that do it their own time to help keep the place tidy, etc., etc. So that's.
Councillor Bliss, Councillor Worcester.
My poorly this evening, so I've written down what I'm going to say just in case, hopefully I get it right. Thank you, Deputy Leader, for talking about the closure of Blackburn Lodge. However, this does highlight the huge issue with KCC communications. It's a huge issue. Recent issues include adult social care, closure of Blackburn Lodge, quite evidently. Community engagement with Grovehurst roundabout, safety issues, which has inconvenienced hundreds and hundreds of residents all across Sware. Safety issues and air pollution issues as well. Send and transport issues, which are becoming quite an issue with KCC for historical problems that are affecting our residents on a day-to-day basis. I'm well aware that KCC holds the control over these issues, but they are affecting the welfare of our residents. Can we confirm we are urging every avenue of communication to be used by ourselves and KCC with the public and local councillors who are entirely ignored when it comes to communicating these massive issues with the public? Blackburn Lodge, not one email was sent to the town council, not one email was sent to town councillors. We cannot support residents, appropriate councillors, if we are in the dark about such important issues with their welfare. They have been entirely ignored, which doesn't aid public calls for transparency in this process, which is funded by council taxpayers. And we must remind ourselves that over 60% of our council tax paid by our ratepayers goes to KCC, and they are fully entitled to transparency from KCC like they are from us. So, question was, can we have reassurance that all communications are being urged from both KCC and Sware to make sure our residents get the transparency they deserve, please? Apologies, sorry.
Councillor Worcester, Councillor Bonner.
Thank you very much. Deputy Leader, or hopefully the Leader, when he's back and fit, please have a conversation with the senior police officers to see where they are on the recruitment. We talk about safer streets, and I think Councillor Bowen's picked up on this because we share a PC, and out of there's 18 positions and only 6 are currently staffed. So they're significantly understaffed, and I think it's imperative that the policing numbers need to get up to where they should be as quickly as possible, and we need some assurance on that time frame. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bonner. Councillor Newman.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to echo the Deputy Leader's well wishes to our leader, and hopefully he is recovered very soon. Secondly, as much as I would hate to contradict him and bring a downer on the celebrations regarding KCC's decision to not close the tip, there was a press release which came out from KCC this afternoon which said that all options are still on the table, unfortunately, and the consultation is paused at the time. So sadly, that might still happen, but yeah, at least it's paused, and hopefully it will remain paused indefinitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Newman. Is there anybody else that would like to say? Councillor Harrison.
I'd chip in 2 pence on the KCC communication. It's very good news to hear about the HWRC. Do know that next Wednesday, Thursday, I'm looking at the dates, Policy and Resources Cabinet Committee at Kent County Council will be giving their recommendation to the cabinet member for the closing of the children's centres. This council did put in its response to the community consultation, and it is coming up next week. There's also the family hubs coming up the day before next week. So, you know, we may have won a small battle temporarily, but we've not yet won the war about facilities in our boroughs which affect the poorest and most deprived people actually being cut. And we're talking the Children's Centre in Faversham, the Children's Centre at Lansdowne. Oh, no, it's all right, you can get down to Sheerness, really lovely. So we do need to keep on at this, and thanks.
Thank you, councillor Harrison. Everybody? I'll invite, councillor Baldock to do his response.
I'd like to assure everybody in the chamber that the committee chairs do actually talk to me outside of this leader's speech. I would like, yeah, I could talk to me this afternoon, updated me. I apologise to Councillor Perkin, could have sent you a copy very late in the day. Some good comments made by a lot of people. I haven't got that long to respond to them, so I'm going to pick out the important bits. Councillor Bowen, yes, homelessness is still definitely a priority for this. Tackling homelessness is definitely still a priority for this administration. Welcome Councillor Martin's comments on that. And yes, of course, he's right. We're building housing that local people can't afford. That's part of why we've got to knock back on the whole concept of national planning and the way it's being done. And he gave an example, there's an even sadder fact that in our own building, there's a homeless person sleeping sometimes. When we go in and out, can't shut your eyes to it, but it's right in front of you. Antisocial behaviour, yes, Councillor Bowen again and Councillor Bonney, quite right. It's not just restricted to the town centres, it is across the rural areas. At some of the rural areas of our centres are hubs where the organised crime is carried out in the centres. I was talking at the leaders group with the Police and Crime Commissioner and I think the Chief Constable. They are recruiting, they are successfully recruiting. I think that the new reform that they put through is actually a good model, is better than the PCSO model. I've been promoting it for a year, got some investment and hoping that it works. But I do think that the early signs are positive, so we can look forward to that going forward. Blackburn Lodge, yeah. And you're right, cases in general communications. Lousy. That's why at JTB, and I think it'll be on your papers today, because of the chaos in the traffic, we are looking at setting up a group to help coordinate traffic chaos because the communication is dreadful. The fact that people in Blackburn Lodge just left in that sort of position at short notice, being dispersed across the county, it's not a way to treat people. So yes, I actually condemn the way that's been handled. I think I've covered most of the area. I'd like to thank everybody for their contribution, but there was a contribution, and it's going to show there is a common sense across this chamber about the injustices when they face things as well, but we all want to tackle them by whatever means we can. Thank you.
Councillor Baldock, that's, yeah, agree with you there. Agenda item 9 is a motion to encourage GP partners to receive IRIS training. A motion encouraging GP partners to receive IRIS training received from Councillor Perkin. I will invite you to propose the motion. You have 5 minutes to speak, and I think as we did the last meeting, you read the motion first, then speak on it. Okay, so there's no confusion.
Thank you, Emma. So just to read the motion, the IRIS programme delivered in Swale by Satida is a social enterprise established to promote and improve the healthcare response to gender-based violence. It is a specialist domestic violence and abuse training, support and referral programme for general practices that have been positively evaluated in a randomised controlled trial. It is a partnership between health and specialist DVA sector. IRIS, whom IRIS provides in-house DVA training for general practice teams and a named advocate to whom patients can be referred for support. Since 2010, Iris has received 10,369 referrals and fully trained an estimated 695 general practices in 36 localities nationwide. Locally, the training has been successfully rolled out in Maidstone and Canterbury and Coastal, where referrals are now regularly put in, but uptake for the training from GP surgeries in Slough has been low. The council resolves to write to GP partners in Slough, encouraging them to sign up to receive the free Irish training and to work with a specialist domestic violence worker that covers Slough so that victims and survivors are able to access direct referrals to an advocate educator through their GP. That's the motion. Let me just switch to the other bit. Okay. So firstly, my congratulations actually go to Satida, who also won a King's Award for community service last week and are an invaluable service for the people of Swale. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic abuse in their lifetime. Between 6 and 23% of women attending their GP surgery will have experienced physical or sexual abuse from a current or previous partner in the preceding year. 80% of women in a violent relationship seek help from health services at least once, usually through their GP, and this may be their first and only contact with professionals. Iris provides a referral to a named contact, the advocate educator. This referral is made by a clinician, not by the patient, providing a proactive approach that patients have said that they prefer. Patients can be referred regardless of their level of risk or whether they want to leave the relationship or not. Referring clinicians are notified when the advocate educator has received their referral, and the practice will also have ongoing support and consultancy provided. Referring clinicians then receive updates from an advocate educator, including information about the support their patient is receiving and other services that they have been referred to. This sharing of information enables monitoring risk and safety planning. Ultimately, the whole programme is to the benefit of patients, practices and practice teams. It improves safety, quality of life and well-being for patients and their children. It provides access to advocacy and survivors of domestic violence and abuse. It develops DVA-aware practices with fully informed, resource and equipped practice teams, and it saves general practices and the wider NHS time and resources. It also provides holistic care, thus achieving better patient outcomes in terms of improved quality of life, physical, mental and health and well-being improvements. I'll leave you with one of the personal testimonials from someone who has been through the Irish referral programme. The only doctor who ever asked. I was just so relieved that somebody had said something, and he gave me a box of tissues, and I sat there and I just cried and I cried and I cried. He said, "Tell me when you're ready." He said, "There is somebody out there to help me. I'm not on my own. And if I want help, it's there, and not to be ashamed of it," which I was. I was really ashamed of it. And he said, "You're not on your own. We can get you this help." And he did. He really did. Please support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birkin. Yeah, Councillor Palmer, you're going to be seconding the motion, and you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Yes, I'll be seconding the motion and I wish to reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Sorry about that, this was not read. Okay, I'd now like to ask the Deputy Leader if he wishes to speak.
Okay, next.
You're right.
Yeah, thank you to Councillor Perkin and Councillor Palmer for bringing this forward. Domestic abuse is an invidious disease that contaminates our families and our societies, which all too often remains hidden far too long. Of course, we must support this motion, because anything and everything that helps tackle this abhorrence can give strength or comfort to those affected have our full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. That's about it.
Thank you, Mayor. With the microphone, does help. Thank you. I'll try again. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no issue with this motion in principle, but with a couple of observations. Firstly, is there a reason why we would not also include writing to the ICB as well at the same time as writing to GP partners? and ask them to promote and facilitate the take up of the scheme. If this hasn't been done, then would the proposer be willing to make that very, very minor alteration to the motion to include writing to the ICB? Pretty much the same, would be the same letter. Secondly, if the scheme has successfully rolled out to Maidstone and Canterbury and Coastal, do we have the figures to show this, and what's the swale done different to not have the same success as the other areas? Could this be another effect in relation to the motion last month regarding GP patient ratios? That GP simply haven't got the time to undertake the training and the programme. Could it be that local health authorities haven't publicised it? Has it even been offered? I don't know. Domestic violence is a major issue that we must do whatever we can to stop and hold those responsible to account with appropriate action taken. We cannot undervalue the importance of this topic, nor any help that may be available to help tackle the problem. I will be happy to support the motion and the minor amendment if the proposer is happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. I'm now going to open the comments up to members, and I'll get Councillor Gort to read those.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a very welcome training scheme, which I think would be very valuable. I would echo Councillor Bowen's comments about communication. Like being a GP in Canterbury and Coastal, it hasn't actually been a scheme that I have actually heard of before, and so I think that communication is something that does need to come forward. The best people to write to probably are the primary care network education leads and the training hubs. There are regular protected learning times, and this would be very much a topic that would reach a wide number of GP practices in one hit if you go through that route. So I would very much recommend that. The idea of a single point of access or something like this is very useful. There's quite often very many different routes that are come forward at different times, and to have something clear and also with that personal touch. I think there are some very good hallmarks about the scheme, and I'm sure all GP practices will be very keen to take this up. So those are just some pointers about how to get that to GPs to see the way forward.
Thank you, Councillor Gort, for those suggestions. Worth knowing. So Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And through you, I'd like to thank Councillors Kirkin and Palmer for putting this motion that I hope would have the full support of this council. Madam Mayor, I do understand how busy our GPs are, but this training could make life-changing differences to so many of our residents across our community. This training would enable domestic violence victims to find their voices, be believed, feel safe, begin a journey of hope. No disrespect to Madam Mayor, but this motion and the training literally save lives. For too long, domestic violence has been hidden, mainly because it happens behind closed doors, but also there is a stigma attached. Help, although available, was difficult to access. Now there is an opportunity for domestic violence victims to have somewhere safe to go, to talk without the judgment, the worry of the perpetrator of the violence and abuse influencing the outcome. Madam Mayor, domestic violence can affect so many, not just the victim, but their children and their other members of their family. And this isn't just physical, but psychological and emotional abuse. The damage isn't just skin deep, it is the pain that just keeps giving. Madam Mayor, the IRIS training will give GP surgeries the opportunity to help stop the pain and begin the healing process. Madam Mayor, every 30 seconds, a report of domestic violence will be made. Since 2010, IRIS has received over 10,000 referrals, and behind each one of those referrals is someone being provided with the validation of their experience, a safe place to say what's happened to them. Madam Mayor, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence from an intimate partner. 1 in 7 women and 1 in 25 men have been injured by an intimate partner. And police reported over 1.5 million domestic abuse-related incidents in a year ending March 2022.
Women who experience domestic violence are twice as likely to experience depression, and 40% of homeless women state that domestic violence is a contributing factor. Even more upsetting is that it is estimated that around 3 women a week will die by suicide as a result of domestic violence. Now is the time to say enough is enough. The Irish training will deliver that message. Madam Mayor, it's so hard when you feel that no one will listen to you, that no one will believe you, when you are told time and time again that you don't matter, that you are worthless, that you are asking for it, when you feel you have nowhere to turn. Madam Mayor, this training could and should make a difference for decades to come. I just wish that 30 years ago, when I was at my lowest point, I could have had the strength to get the help that I needed, and perhaps the light at the end of the tunnel may have arrived earlier than it did. This motion will hopefully encourage more GPs to take this vital training to help more domestic violence victims become survivors. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And councillor. My long sight.
Thank you, this motion. Don't know the full content of this Irish training. Does it cover the areas of how statements are given from the victims, and how they're supported going through the court process to make sure that perpetrators are brought to justice within the court system? I can give personal experiences of when victims come to court, break down in court, give out no evidence, the perpetrators get away effectively with their crimes. And I think it's a very important area, as much as well, obviously all the support for victims as well. But when it happens that the statements are valid and they are supported through the court process to make sure these perpetrators are brought to justice and given lengthy custodial sentences. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Tucker. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Councillor Austin.
Sorry, I just wanted to highlight as well. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, apologies. I just wanted to highlight Stages Up work as well as we're talking about it. They're also working with fantastic programs with child to adult domestic violence and also carers violence as well. And I think that it's lovely that their work is being highlighted this evening. And I'll be giving this my full support this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Austin. That's everyone speaking. Then councillor Tom would like to come back.
Very pleased that Councillor Perkin brought this item to the motion for the members here to make a decision on, to vote on. And I'm very pleased that we have full support across the council. People have said GPs are busy people, and I accept that. But if information to them, whatever channel, whether we go to the ICB or as Councillor Gould suggested, and the letter going out to the appropriate authorities, then the GPs have an extra tool. Would be much appreciated by them, and would have a great impact on those who, and as people have quite rightly said, it is often a hidden crime, and people don't like to talk about it, even to family and friends, and sometimes it identifies the problem and can have an access to. So I commend this motion and thank you to Councillor Perkin for bringing it forward and for all those who contributed, and sometimes in quite heartfelt ways. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer, it's been really powerful for you on this debate, and so I'd like to ask Councillor Perkin if she, as the proposer, she'd like to come back.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, firstly, I'd just like to thank Councillor Watson for sharing what is obviously a very personal story. And it's by people speaking up and sharing their personal stories that other people get help. So thank you for being so candid and open in a public chamber. I'm more than happy to accept councillor Bowen's, motion. I think also probably to add in councillor, Gould's suggestions as well would be helpful if the council is agreeable to that. There are figures available. I've seen them from Satida around the uptake from both Maidstone and I think probably the Canterbury surgeries rather than the Faversham surgeries. I think that's probably a crossover ICB situation there that has been the reason why we haven't, may not have heard of that in Faversham Council Board, but hopefully after this motion then we will. On the point of GPs being stretched for time, I think it's a really relevant point that within the Irish document itself, it states that 70% of women that go through the Irish referral programme tend not to go back to their GP with smaller issues that are caused by the domestic violence, because that's been helped for them. So actually there's a payoff at the beginning that then saves NHS resources and time later on down the road. Councillor Tuckett, Satida do a support to court programme. So once the referral through the advocate educator is made, they can support the person through the court process, which I think is also incredibly important, and thank you for raising it. I guess just to finish that, speaking to one of the people from Satida last week, there has recently been a domestic homicide review by Kent County Council, and one of the things that was flagged in the review was that there was concern that GPs were receiving kind of disclosures from women, but there wasn't a clear pathway for referrals to happen. So hopefully through enhanced knowledge of the service that Satida provide by providing the Irish training, that plugs a little gap, so that all women in Kent, in Swale can be able to access support, so that we don't get to the point where we're looking at domestic homicides. Thank you everybody for your contributions, and yeah, hopefully it will be with all of those issues, it'll be a stronger motion. So thank you.
And we're ready to go to the vote, and as the proposal, Councillor Perkins happy for the extra recipients, we'll take that into account. So the vote will include those additions. Yes. Okay, so I'd like everybody who is in favour of this, please raise their hand. Unanimous, so thank you. The next agenda item is the constitution amendment. So the next item, the agenda constitution amendment, is various amendments. I invite Deputy Leader, Councillor Mike Aldup, to introduce the report and propose recommendations.
Of course, this is always the highlight of the full council. The constitutional amendments. I'd like to thank Robin for all work he does on this as well. It tidied up a few anomalies that were left hanging. It's brought the members' allowance scheme closer in line with the legal requirements. Brings in some licensing amendments that bring us into line with the law. Yeah, lots of exciting stuff which we've gone over in detail. Removed the fantasy that planning is a quasi-judicial role. It isn't. So hopefully we'll have a nice long debate about this, going to some meanings of going to the meanings of words and how you can get out of it and get it done quick. Thanks.
I invite Councillor Bowen then to second, and ask whether he wishes to speak now on reserve is right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to second. I reserve my right to keep this highlight of the agenda going.
Thank you, Councillor Bowen. So I invite Councillor Perkins to speak.
I know that we can be glib about constitutional amendments, but the constitution is pretty important, so we should probably make sure that we're doing that properly. Again, thanks to Ms Harris for the work that he's put into putting all this together, and I'd like to have any further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. So I have enough debate to members if they wish to speak on this. That's the moment, she'd like to come back, please.
Well, there's a response. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I'm pleased that this highlight is actually 10th on the agenda tonight, when quite often these items get buried so far down the agenda. So it's nice to see it being debated, as Councillor Perkins said, it is important, and that actually members are still awake to pay attention and listen to what's being said. So well done. Thanks to Robin Monitoring Officer and also the Constitutional Working Group, which had a good debate on this, but I think it's not quite so trenched down in playing with words as maybe it has been in the past, but I think these are good amendments. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to second.
Councillor Bone, thank you very much. So we can move on to the vote on the recommendation. All those in favour? Unanimous, so thank you. Councillor Smith. Moving on to the annual report. Inviting Simon Clark as the chair of the audit committee to introduce this, Councillor Simon Clark, to introduce the report and propose the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't propose to go over the report in verbatim this evening. Members will have had a chance to read my statement that is accompanying this agenda item. In conclusion, at the back, the audit committee has worked in partnership with the council's internal and external auditors and received support from the officers. This has provided robust, effective and independent assurance to the council on a wide range of risk, governance and internal control issues. The audit committee can demonstrate that it has appropriately and effectively fulfilled its duties during 2022-23 as set out in the respective minutes. And finally, before I move the recommendation, Madam Mayor, I'd just like to recall my thanks to Derek Carnell, Councillor Derek Carnell, who unfortunately isn't with us this evening, for his sterling work on the committee during 2022-23 during my mayoral year. I think a lot of the praise for what's in this report should go to him. And also just to echo the last paragraph in my statement to thank all the officers involved with the audit committee. Therefore, Madam Mayor, I have the pleasure to move the recommendation that the audit committee annual report 2022-23 is agreed.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So can I ask Councillor Richard Palmer to second and ask him, do you wish to speak now or right?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will second the recommendations and I will reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. So now I open the debate to members if they wish to speak. I think that's a no. That's a no. So, Councillor Palmer, would you like to?
Thank you. I think Councillor Clark summed it up very well, and I think they have put a lot of hard work in to get the report all done and sorted. And I think if that's all right, we can move on to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. That's not, Councillor Clark, opposed to the recommendation, do you wish to say any more? Someone?
I move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. So we'll move on to the vote. All members in favour, can you raise your hands? Unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 12 is the council tax reduction scheme 2024-25. I invite the deputy leader, Councillor Baldock, to introduce the report and propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I prepared earlier. The council tax support scheme has been in place since 2013 and changed to a banded scheme in April 2023. This has meant that working age claimants now have less changes to the amount of council tax they pay. The scheme is working well, with 65% of all information received from Universal Credit now automated, leaving the team time to deal with more complex claims, provide support to the most vulnerable claimants. The minimum amount working age claimants have to pay at 20%. This is comparable with most other districts in Kent. If claimants are struggling to pay their council tax, additional support can be awarded from the small amount of funding that has been provided by DWP. To ensure that claimants stay in the same band and their support isn't reduced, Policy and Resources Committee have recommended that the grid amounts of Table 1 are increased by the DWP annual uprating percentage. I move recommendations 1 and 2, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Baldock. Can I ask councillor Bowen to second the motion, and do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Happy to second and reserve.
Thank you, councillor Bowen. I'll now open up to any members that wish to speak on this. Councillor Martin.
We were going far and fast. So I thought I'd slow things up a bit. I do agree with what's been put forward on here. However, I do think we need to take a look further down the road, perhaps next year, at how we might better support care leavers. Care leavers currently only receive the same rate as any under 23. But Universal Credit, they're expected to pay their council tax. No, it's a bit concerning. It's something that we may have to look at. I do hope to come forward and have some further discussions with the Guildford Society, something a bit more concrete that we can discuss for the next budget setting.
Thank you, councillor Martin. Is there anything else we can just speak? That's okay.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, I completely support the recommendation as well. And just as a point of interest for the council, I think probably on point 23 of the report, when looking at the gender split of people who are needing council tax relief, 61% of people are women, which is quite a high figure. And I wondered whether that's something we could potentially look at in the future to see whether there's anything that we could be doing to better prevent that from happening.
Thank you, councillor Berwick. Any other councillors? So, as secondary, councillor Bowen, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're actually moving so fast, I might be home to be able to watch the end of my Married at First Sight on MasterChef. But you can't put it out. Councillor Martin's point, I think is right. I'm happy to second this motion, retaining the council tax reduction scheme. It's an essential for many within our community. There is a saying, if it ain't broken, don't try to fix it. However, at this time, because it is still relatively new, we don't know if it could be broken or improved. So I agree for now, no changes need to be made. I think the council tax reduction scheme plays a role in ensuring social justice and equality within our community. It provides financial assistance to those who are less fortunate, and we're contributing to a society that cares for its most vulnerable members. Moreover, the council tax support scheme is a proactive measure that helps prevent homelessness and financial instability. By alleviating some of the burden of council tax for those facing economic challenges, we are enabling families to stay in their homes and maintain stability and avoid the devastating consequences of homelessness. In doing so, we're not only upholding our moral duty, but also fostering a community that values compassion and empathy. Finally, I think retaining the council tax support scheme, well, that's the title, is not merely a fiscal choice. It is a commitment to the values and compassion, social justice and community solidarity. I am more than happy to second.
Thank you. So we will move on to the vote, but in accordance with the Local Authority Standard Orders England Regulations 2010 as amended, there will be a recorded vote.
Who said?
I'll put the tea back in there. So councillor Baldock,
Four.
councillor Bonnet. Owen,
Four.
councillor Braun,
Four.
councillor Cameron. Four. Councillor Cheeseman. Four. Councillor Clark, Roger Clark, sorry.
Four.
Councillor Simon Clark,
Four.
councillor Goulding,
Four.
councillor Gould,
Four.
councillor Hall,
Four.
councillor Harrison,
Four.
councillor Jackson. Four. Councillor Jays,
Four.
councillor Last. Four. You. Councillor Lehman.
Four.
Councillor McDonald.
Four.
Councillor Marchington.
Four.
Councillor Martin. Councillor Ben Martin, sorry.
Four.
Some similar surnames this time. Councillor Claire Martin. Four. Councillor Miller.
Four.
Councillor Moore. Four. Councillor Neil.
Four.
Councillor No. Four. Councillor Christine Palmer. Four. Councillor Richard Palmer.
Four.
Councillor Perkin. Four. Councillor Speed.
Four.
Myself. Four. Councillor Thompson.
Four.
Councillor Tucker.
Four.
Councillor Vallis. Valls. Four. Councillor Watson. Four. Councillor Worcester. Four. Councillor Whiting.
Four.
Councillor Winkless.
Four.
Councillor Wise.
Four.
So I wasn't a school teacher as our chief executive used to be, so my roll call's not quite as good. There's a class. I just want to confirm that you did say yes to me.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, councillors. Okay, so moving on to item 13. Yeah, this is inviting councillor Baldock as vice chair of the Policy and Resources to introduce the report for the purpose of the recommendation on the local plan review next steps.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Don't know why I'm always associated with this, but I do think it keeps popping up in my remit. This has been through and discussed by the local body policy and transport working group, been discussed by PNR. It has, I hope, been discussed in the group. This is one of the most important things that we do as a council, decide how we're going to tackle the local plan issue. There are various options put out for discussion, and the one that's come back was a combination of two of the options. Basically, to continue working on an evidence base based on the local need, not national need, but to pause the timetable for delivering the local, for publishing the local plan until the government either lives up to or reneges upon its commitments, which we hope will remove targets across the board. We are at the moment, if we were to meet the try and meet government's target, we'd have to face 11,000 houses extra in Swale. We know that the GPs can't cope, not enough of them. We know the roads can't cope. We know that the schools can't cope. We know that across Swale, we could not cope with another 11,000 houses. Try and meet the government's target would mean we would be saying, yes, the people of Swale, you can put up with another 11,000 houses, most of which you won't be able to afford. Yes, you can put up with an ever diminishing ratio of GPs. Yes, you can put up with ever growing congestion on our roads. Yes, you can put up with not knowing where your children are going to go to school. And I don't think any of us here, with any honesty, believes that it's remotely achievable. So our plan, our proposal is that we wait, see what government does. In the meantime, we continue to work to evidence, to show what we think Swale can accommodate and get the policies and the principles ready so that as soon as the government says targets are being removed, we're ready to put in Reg 19 indicates how we think we can go forward in Swale. That's quick in case the next government decides to impose targets back again. So there's a fairly limited window potentially that we need to strike. So we've got to get ready. We can't just sit there and wait to see what happens. We've got to prepare, we've got to get the evidence, we've got to show what Swale is capable of delivering. And then we've got to convince an inspector. But let's be united in this. This is far too long and nationally been used as a football. We need to support the people of Swale. Please support the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Baldock. Can I invite Councillor Gould to second the motion, and do you want to reserve your right to speak?
Second motion, I'll reserve my right.
Councillor Gould. Members, does anybody want to speak on this? Councillor James.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's no surprise why we have to pull the bloke. About 16 housing minister in just 13 years, being appointed just 2 days ago. It's his second spell in the job, just over a year. Let's hope he lasts more than 48 days he served last time. Meaning outlasting the latest. Sorry, Prime Minister.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm totally behind this document. As the Deputy Leader said, this borough cannot be taking in all this additional housing. We haven't got any infrastructure in place. We haven't got the doctors' surgeries. We haven't got the schools. And the figure that the Deputy Leader mentioned, 11,000 houses, is absolutely ludicrous. So I am totally in favour of the document and say no more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winkles. I've got Councillor Bowen next.
Madam Mayor. Quite pleased to say this for once. I'm happy that we've shown a bit of caution and being prudent on this, and that actually we're trying to get our things in order for the appropriate time when we actually need to action them. So I actually think I'm happy with the proposal. But as some people like to play, have made some party comments this evening. You're right, Deputy Leader, in terms of the numbers, but we've got a general election coming in 12 months' time-ish. That could possibly bring a new government. How are you going to deal with an extra 1.5 million houses on top?
Thank you. Councillor Simon Clark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I wholeheartedly support this this recommendation. I've worked with the leader, deputy leader on this one. The points I'd like to raise is it's part question, part statement really. How can we work to evidence our statutory consultees? We all know who these statutory consultees are, who come back at every planning committee meeting on a large scale development and say they've got no comment. We can't keep going on with adding houses after houses after houses. We've already got lots of estates that are already starting off at the moment. And as everyone knows, we've got no GPs, surgeries, infrastructures or anything to support these. So yeah, I wholeheartedly support this. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the real problems here, not just that the last housing Secretary of State lasted, did we say 40 days?
Yeah.
But there've been 11 in the last 10 years. Now, all of us have been involved in developing strategic plans. Know that you can't do it in 5 minutes. It takes some careful thought, hopefully some good ideas, and then developing a plan which can work and which will solve at least a fair proportion of the difficulties. Don't have that. Can I please ask that consideration is given to writing to central government saying, will they please leave state alone at least until the general election, whenever that comes.
Excellent. Does anybody else like to, oh, Councillor, Martin, thank you.
I can't resist, when we're talking on local plan, one of the things that I fully agree with the position that's been taken, to be honest. However, I am disappointed that when we're looking at where the cons are, where the difficulties are in taking this step, we're not mentioning the fact that all that work that's already gone in to develop policies, improved policies on the environment and to deliver more affordable housing. Because let's not forget, we can't deliver a single affordable unit through 106 on Sheppey until we adopt a new local plan review, has not been included in the list of cons. We have to bear that in mind. We also can't always say no, that actually housing is not the answer. We've just said that we're concerned about homelessness, we're concerned about affordability of housing. You can't say that we're really concerned we're going to do something about it, and then on the other hand go, but I don't want to build a single new house anywhere in the borough. We've got to have some common sense on that approach. We need the housing, we need to be the right sort of housing, and that's why we need a proper local plan that delivers that. And I understand we can't deliver that. We've got, I'm sorry, I think I calculated it out that I lasted longer as a cabinet member here for housing than 8 cabinet members at the central government. So I wasn't there, that was only 3 years. So come on, let's face it. They need to have a bit more stability as this council has.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Anything else like to say? No, so could Councillor Gould come back as seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just picking up on a couple of points. I think that the document does outline that there is a renewed emphasis on engagement with the statutory consultees, trying to find some ways of getting them into the process earlier so that GP provision schools are actually, and especially the issues around water, both delivery and disposal, are actually beginning to be addressed, challenging those consultees not to accept their blandishment at face value, that they'll do what they're supposed to do. We know that they don't. And I think that is something that is in this process, and it has been highlighted as something as the plan developed. We're going to do our utmost to try to get that engagement. I certainly take on board what Councillor Martin was saying about there needs to be some houses built, but they need to be the right sort of houses. And I think what the whole strategy is trying to do is do this through market solutions. It's which just has not delivered, and I think that's really apparent over not just the past 13 years, but longer than that. That the free market approach to this sort of problem, where it's a social need, has not actually been adequate, and we need the right sort of houses in the right places. Unfortunately, the system has numerous constraints in it. And the NPPF hasn't yet been changed. It was supposed to be coming forward in spring 2023. Well, it's chilly for spring, really, at the moment. And we are hidebound by the constraints, and the officers are also in some ways hidebound by their constraints. But they are looking at ways that we can actually work within the system, particularly focusing on those issues around deliverability, which is one of the criteria for housing to go into the plan is that it has to be shown to be deliverable. And I think we will be looking at, you know, the way that the market isn't delivering, but also that the infrastructure is also making projects less deliverable than they were. We just really need to focus on what actually can be done. On the topic about the policies that were in the local plan, I'd reassure them that I'm sure they are not forgotten. They are there waiting to go in as soon as we can actually put the plan. And I certainly would be very much looking forward to bringing in some of the better standards around the environmental issues that and the biodiversity, as well as the housing standards that were in the original draft back in. So I would recommend this policy. I think it's the most pragmatic solution in a difficult situation.
Thank you, Councillor Gould. Can I ask Councillor Bullock to come back as the proposer? Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I would like to agree with what Councillor Clark Simon said about getting people to respond. I know what he's talking about, the dreadful experience we have in the planning committee of trying to work out why KCC think everything's fine. It is hard to get statutory consultees to feed into this process. That's why we held a Reg 19. I put out Reg 19 about 3 years ago. It wasn't the most popular of Reg 19, especially in some areas. But what that did, it forced some of the statutory consultees to respond. And they had to respond and say what they would say to the inspector. We got a lot of useful information out of that. All of them said no. And that is evidence we can help take forward when building the next Reg 19. Say, 11,000 didn't work this way, didn't work that way. So we have got that information, we are building that information. We are, I think, got quite a strong data bank of evidence to say why a lower figure is possibly deliverable. I'm sure we can write to the government and ask them for some consistency. Yeah, they haven't got long to hang on, I'm sure. And possibly we could do what Medway have done. I think this is worth thinking about. Is putting a regulation 18 out just on policies, so that we can get some of those policies out there, get them consulted on, and that would be, if that work is done in ahead of a Reg 19 submission, it would mean that there's less to get hung up on the regulation 19, and hopefully that would enable us to get it delivered in that very narrow period that might be available between a Conservative government removing targets and Labour putting them back. So I'm sure everything is being done to facilitate this ambition of the council once this has been voted on tonight, so that we can actually deliver on that basis. Thank you.
Councillor Bullock. So I'd like to move to a vote now. Show of hands. Are those in favour, please show their hand. Unanimous. Item 14 is nomination to an outside body, Mies Booking Group. I would like Councillor Baldock to introduce the report, please.
Didn't see this one. Okay, the Mies Woodland Group is a community group that started the community woodland in the Meads. It was part of a project of the the Western Area Committee. We set up different bodies, and this was one of them. They have chosen to operate with a council representative on their trustees. So Councillor Hunt's been doing that since last year unofficially, and we've now looked to regularise it through a full council appointment process. And well, I'm happy to second. I do, okay, so,
No, not yet.
yeah, yes.
Thank you. That's lovely. So are there any nominations? Please? That's fine.
As he's already involved in it, I would like to nominate Councillor James Hunt.
Thank you, that's fine. Are there any other nominations?
It's actually on the report, Madam Mayor, if I'm right. This is merely a nomination. This isn't a trusteeship, is it?
Motion. Councillor Harrison. So.
Yes, thank you. It's on the point, thank you, Madam Mayor, on the point that Councillor Harrison makes, because we see this confusion every time this comes up. Either at full council as it did last year, the minutes actually say we nominated lots of people. Some of those people actually we appointed to groups of like-minded councils or in the health authorities, for example, and others, we nominated people to be appointed by their boards as trustees of their company. These people are trustees as they're directors of the company. So there are two confusions really. It's interesting to perhaps we could look at this at a constitution working party, just get the wording right, because we can't appoint people to somebody's company. We haven't got the power to do that. And secondly, once somebody is a director of a company, they can't be our representative because they are representing the interests of the company, not the interests of the council. But we do have to get the wording right in all of this. They've got a legal duty to represent the interests of the company for which they were directed. That's in the charter.
It's not company.
My understanding is that this is a trust. And they will be nominated to be, anyway, I'll leave it at that. And I'm happy to support council when we get a nomination of council. But I think if we can go to a constitutional working party to have a quick look at, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Body actually asked us to nominate somebody in this instance. But I fully take on the confusion over nominations and approvals. It is something we could. I think we have got it now, but obviously we haven't made it understandable. So that is something that CP JUG is more than happy to take on. And we'll bring it back and give you a full lecture on it. I'm happy to second Councillor Hunt.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no problem, obviously, but if it is a trusteeship as opposed to I am going to be on a little group. And we had a problem some years ago trying to exfiltrate somebody we nominated to be a trustee of something. Might be one person in this room who knows what I'm talking about, but it was quite difficult. So if it is a trusteeship and the individual knows exactly what that entails, I ain't got a problem.
So obviously, the council can't make somebody a trustee. So where the body is a trust, what the council can do is nominate a person to go to that body, and whether or not that body then invites that person to become a trustee, which then does have all of the responsibilities which go legally with being a trustee, then that does become a matter for them. Then it's probably a too complex issue to try and answer in respect of every arrangement in relation to how trusts are insured and the various ways their trustees are protected. But it is a relevant point in relation to when you become a trustee, if you are a member who was nominated by the council, then you have the full legal duties of a trustee. And that is something you do need to be aware of and bear in mind.
So as long as everyone's happy, we'll move on to a vote. Voting. Okay, we're going to show our hands, please. This is called a small debate, so we'll get some clarity in the future. That's good. Unanimous. So councillor Hunt is on the meeting with the group as a nomination. Thank you. Item 15, recommendations for approval. Do members agree to note the recommendations from the Policy and Resources Committee held on the 18th of October 2023?
No, it's.
Thank you. Do members agree to note the recommendations of the Licensing Committee held on the 19th of October 2023? Yes. Great, lovely. So that brings the meeting to a close at that is nearly an hour. Very happy to see you there. Okay.